we call to order? Or?
Well, as soon as the screen comes up, you can call to order. Give the time.
Webinar is now live.
Okay.
Are we live?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Dr. Lewis? Here. Mr. Pittner, Mr. Lockhart?
Aye.
Is Mr.
Mike's
Pittner
there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's all right.
Can they see us? Or
Is Mr.
See
Bentley
me.
there?
That's okay. I wanted to know.
Is Mr. Bentley there?
Mr. Bentley is not here.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we need a motion and a second to approve the minutes from September 21st, 2020.
I move. Well, are there any questions regarding the minutes? Has everybody looked at the minutes? You reviewed the minutes? We're all good with the minutes? I think so. We need a second.
Okay.
On roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis? Aye. Mr. Lockhart?
Aye.
Mr. Wren?
Aye.
Mr. Pittner?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're just taking care of a little housekeeping. This being the first meeting of the year, we've got a little housekeeping to do here. All right, what we're going to do next, we need a nomination for, what we're going to do is the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. Let's start with the chair. Do I have a nomination for the chair?
I nominate Mr. Wren.
I second.
Third.
No. Okay. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart? Mr. Wren?
Aye.
Mr. Pittner?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now we need a vice chair.
We need a nomination for vice chair. Who is existing vice chair?
Mr. Pittner?
I am.
Oh, Mike, okay. I nominate Mike, Mr. Kittner.
Second.
That's all we need on roll call. Aye.
Aye. Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart? Mr. Wren?
Aye.
Mr. Pittner?
Aye.
You can vote for yourself, Mike.
Okay.
Oh, you can't? Okay. I'll vote for somebody else.
And then we need secretary, please. Which is presently Mr. Bentley.
Oh, Mr. Bentley.
All you have to do is sign the minutes that I type.
Do you think he still wants to do it?
Honestly, all you do is sign the minutes.
Yeah. I'm going to nominate Mr. Lockhart.
I deny.
All you have to do is sign. You don't have to write anything down.
I know, but I like it. I'm very appreciative.
All right, you respectfully decline. All right, then it's going to be Bentley because he's not here to decline it. I nominate Bentley.
A second.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, good.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lockhart? Mr. Wren?
Aye.
Mr. Pittner?
Aye.
Okay, all right, well done.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you introduce yourself, please, in the audience?
Me?
Yes, please.
Oh, Susan Bolton.
Hi, Susan Bolton. Okay. So I need to, we have the applicant. Hi, Jamie. This is Eileen. And we are about to get the meeting started in terms of reading your request. Can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me okay?
Yes. So right now, I'm going to read the request that we have. And then if you have anything that you want to change, I know that you've been talking with the owner about revising your request a little bit. So currently we have a request from Jamie 5 Supreme Scapes LLC representing Lynn Bauman for the property at 8 Sheldon Close, Mariemont, Ohio, 45227, to install fencing along the rear property line, which borders the property at 6951 Crystal Springs. In addition, they would like to install a fence along the north side of the driveway next to the neighboring fence of 6945 Crystal Springs. The fencing at the rear of the property will be upgraded to the conditions at the rear property line. The installation, this statement is incorrect that I'm going to read, and we will need to revise, I believe, the notice or just have it in the minutes. The installation of this rear property has been reviewed and approved by the adjoining property owners. That is in fact not correct. Regarding the fence on the north side of the drive, it has been viewed by the neighbors, and they have complained that the fencing will be a detriment to their property and will shade their flower garden. An alternative solution of upright bushes has been discussed. And Jamie, this is where I want to ask if you all have altered the request for this along the side drive.
Yeah, so I got off the phone with Don Keys today, and I guess from somewhere in your guys' code, the distance from the house to the existing fence is I guess 5 feet, and you're only allowed to have a fence so tall in that distance there. So that's fine. Yeah, okay, 4 or 5 feet. So that's a new information as of today at like 3 o'clock. So that seems to hinder our progress on moving forward with a full privacy fence. I guess I've talked with Lynn about putting in privacy planting there. It's more expensive. She's, I guess, somewhat okay with the cost. Given that new piece of information about not being able to put in a full-size privacy fence, I don't see any way around it. What I do want to address is the back fence. What I heard you guys just say is that has not been approved, or is that under review right now?
That's what we are here to discuss tonight.
Okay.
So that's the request that we have from you. You'd like to build that rear fence 6 foot, and the construction and the color. So those are the things that the ARB needs to look at and decides whether it's appropriate. But we were just wondering if formally you were going to go ahead with the bushes, or whether you still wanted to have us review tonight the 4 foot section, and behind that the yard opens up and it could be halfway down the side yard, the north side, it could be a full 6 feet. So are you still
So I think that I think the fence being a different height there would look a little odd. So I think we'll propose to do a full 6 foot fence in the backyard, which we have discussed with Ted and Judy Capitas, and they were verbally okay with that. But yeah, I think that north side fence along the driveway, I think is going to be, I'll probably have a discussion with Lynn tomorrow about doing privacy planting. I can't say that will aid the neighbor in the shade of his flower garden. I think those privacy plants will still shade that. So I apologize for that, but I think privacy is the key here.
okay?
Jamie, let me ask you on that 6 foot section across the back of the property line. You know, part of it's going to come behind the back of the garage. Are you going to come around the corner and still maintain the 6 feet until you get to the edge of the garage? Or will you stop the 6 foot height at the back corner of the garage before you turn the corner?
Yeah, I think at this point, we're probably going to terminate the fence into the garage and leave that section. The neighbor there's got a 4 foot black aluminum fence, and there's about a 2 foot distance between the garage and the fence. I just don't see any reason to put a 6 foot fence where you can't see it, and it's providing no privacy for the garage. So,
And I need to make one correction. I'm sorry. You may have had an earlier conversation with Mr. Kobitas, but the current view that he's shared with us is no, he is not in favor of the fence.
okay, that's news as well.
Yeah, I know. It's not, I'm sorry,
Of which fence, the back fence?
the back fence that adjoins Mr. Kobitas's property. He would rather that not be there, even though by code it is allowed.
Okay, so we're talking about the fence in its entirety that neighbor is objecting to,
Correct.
not just the portion that would run behind the garage, even though now he's not going
Yeah,
to run a
that-
section of it behind the garage.
No, that is beyond the garage to the whole back line of the property. And I've got a photo in there for you.
I just want to be clear.
So that's it.
Yeah, so I would have to object. I think if the code is stated in a way that we can put a 6-foot privacy fence there, I think anyone standing in that backyard would understand the need for a privacy fence. It is a complete open line of sight. So I would have to contest their either changing the rules of the code. I think that right now it states that we're able to put that 6-foot privacy fence in regardless of anybody's emotional feeling about it.
That is correct by code.
So let's just clarify what the code requirements are. I know there's varying height allowances, requirements, and levels of opacity at different points along the property corners. And so there's all kinds of different rules. So is the fence that's proposed along the rear property line, is it technically code compliant?
Yes,
Okay, so it's set down on one side. So then the fence that's proposed that runs between the two off the garage, is that technically code compliant?
well, it sounds like they're taking that request away, but if the request was still there, then there's a section of your house that juts out
Right.
and is closer. And that section, the fence can only be 4 feet high,
Because it
but
is,
because it's so close to the property line.
right,
But the section beyond towards the back property line,
Right.
where the houses are further apart, from that point back to the garage, it could be 6 feet.
But that's inaccurate, if I may take the point. That is inaccurate. I have a copy of that statement on the back page. And that is an inaccurate statement.
Okay, then,
Because according to this, the entirety of that fence cannot be taller than 4 feet. And has to be at least the entirety of it.
right.
well, let's,
Not the stop or start into the
okay, perfect. We will, we'll discuss that
Okay.
when we get to you. Okay,
To be clear, the existing fence that I bought with the property is code conforming. There is a fence there made of black painted aluminum.
uh-huh,
It is 4 feet tall. It is more than 50% open. It is code conforming, right?
correct. Yes.
So if these rules apply,
Eileen,
they're gonna.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having a very difficult time hearing the
Yes.
speaker.
Okay, I think we will,
We may have to do some recapping for you, Mike.
well, we'll also try, we need people to speak one at a time and wait their turn, and Peter, you get to do that.
Yes, okay.
You need a gavel. You have a gavel.
You got a gavel.
Don't be afraid to
Okay, so let's just, it concisely is the change.
I got you.
Yeah, that's about it.
Is that better?
Just to isolate the issue, because we don't need to argue code compliance if it is or not, because that's something that's determined with building code. So which one of these is a matter of, which one of these is up for debate? Because along the rear of the property, it is technically code compliant, but the proposal is technically code compliant, and we can talk about the color and the other stuff and set that aside, but that's true. But the one that runs along the line here, between the property,
Mhm.
Along the driveway.
along the driveway. So the 4 foot tall aluminum,
That's currently theirs, and the next door neighbors own that,
they own.
the 4-foot fence. The people,
When you said there's that.
sorry, I need to be more,
Sorry,
so
I
the-
just wanna clarify,
yeah, the corner,
The one
Right,
that's shown
right
here.
here.
yeah, so
So.
the corner lot,
Yeah,
which is 6945,
Right.
has different fence codes.
Yeah.
And they own the current fence that's there, which is 4-foot aluminum, 60% open.
And they
Yes.
are in full compliance with the
Sure.
code, yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So the H showing close proposal
Yes,
is to construct an opaque privacy fence,
yes,
so that would be fully.
yes.
Right. Right,
Well, from that section back where it's allowed to be 6 feet.
So
Thank
is it allowed to be fully opaque along the property?
Yes, it is. Excuse me, one at a, sorry, that's your
That's
turn.
right, yeah.
All right, my first meeting.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
Learn
And
to
people have, I mean, people have strong opinions about the property, it's totally fine. So, but as far as the code is concerned,
Yes.
within our jurisdiction, is that a code compliant fence?
It-
For it
it-
to be 100% okay?
It is.
And then the height is determined, and then the height is determined by its setback from the property, from the building nearby.
Its height is, yes, is
Sorry, I shouldn't say, is determined by the percentage of the distance from the building constructed adjacent to it.
correct.
So
And the
at that point, where the point of contention, we're allowed to be 75% of the setback.
Yes, but as the representative from the building department, the confusion is coming from the fact that the fence height rules are different for corner lots.
Right.
And the fence that the neighbor has at,
But each of the
is-
is not.
exactly, that's what I'm getting to. Correct. And so the fence that is on the corner lot is to code for a corner lot.
Sure.
But 8 Sheldon Close is different fence rules, and
Right.
they are in compliant if they have a 4-foot fence where the neighbor's house is very close. And from that point back where the yard opens up,
Yeah.
they can have a 6-foot privacy fence.
So the H Sheldon Close is, the requirements that apply to H Sheldon Close being not corner lot, being a, whatever the mid block is called.
Yes,
That lot, the requirements stipulate that you can go to 6.
yes. And it can be,
Regardless of this distance from the building?
no,
Okay.
it can, there is the
So that
neighbor's
75%
house.
height requirement still applies.
Yes, the neighbor's house juts out at a certain point, and the length of that,
For that one little section.
Right,
that I showed you.
and so for that one section, the fence can only be 4 feet high.
Let me ask you a follow-up. This is the distance of the house to the property. Is that in compliance with the setbacks currently,
Yes,
even where it gets closer?
yes, the house setbacks are all fine.
Okay.
But the height of it is very close at that one point.
Sure.
And so because of the distance of the width of that side, their side yard.
Right.
In that portion, the fence can only be 4 feet high. But further back, their house moves in and their distance, the width of the side yard there is well enough that 75% of that distance is even more than 6 foot.
But we're still capped at 6 feet.
Correct.
So the non-corner lot being H Sheldon Close, which is the applicant.
Mhm.
So the rules for a corner lot, I think we have to set those aside because they're not the applicant.
Correct.
I'm not ignoring them, we just have to look at the rules that are actually to the site that we're discussing. So
Correct.
if those rules allow it, then we can debate it. If they don't allow it, then we're done. But if they do allow the construction of this fence,
Mhm.
then we're talking about an objection based on other things, not based on compliance with the code.
Correct. And, but here today, the ARB is, we can debate the code, but if they would like a variance from the code, then that would have to go in front of planning.
Right, I just want to make
So,
sure that
but you're right.
if what they're asking is something that is within our rules, that if they were asking something outside the rules, then we would say, then there's another process for that. But if
Correct.
they're within the rules, then we can at least try to-
Correct.
Sorry.
No, it got very confusing.
Sure.
So if I have to interpret this rule correctly, along that fence line between my property and the 8 Sheldon Close property, I can have a fence that has to be 4 feet tall, 50% off, but right next to it, the fence can be 6 feet tall and 100% closed.
That is the code.
For a portion. I did not see that in any
But see,
single
the thing
line.
is, so the difference is that for,
I did not see that line of code.
in this.
That is
whole
not
code,
written in the code.
From which code?
It is not.
Where am I
written-
going?
I think the confusion
Yeah,
is
it's
in the code, and as to, what applies, it's a question of you are a corner lot, and there's a code with specifications. for a corner lot, but she is the, I know.
We need to wait.
I think I can save everyone a lot of.
As the applicant, she is not a corner lot, and therefore a different standard, a different a portion of the code.
But that violates my code. How
Well, not
can it be on the
necessarily.
same line, there could be two fences?
I know,
This is the logic.
it is.
Well, this is the
Well,
building
it
code.
It is, but welcome to the building code.
I believe that if that particular fallacy would have been foreseen by whoever wrote that code, they would have said, in case of two neighbors want to build two fences on the same line, this rule would apply and the other one would not. It is not written.
I agree with you.
I-
The code is
I
a living
agree.
document, so it evolves. So
Let's rewrite it.
well,
We don't do that here tonight.
Um,
The thing of it is, there are numerous examples and circumstances of this situation where you have a house with a corner lot such as yours, and you have an adjacent property that butts at 90 degrees, therefore butting a side lot to a back lot, just like your circumstance, and this rule would apply.
yeah.
It happens. I'll admit, I mean, they, apparently, nobody thought of that.
Clarification in the code.
Yeah.
I would not have gone through the trouble to write this. I would not have gone through the trouble to bother you tonight. If this is not clear in the code, then it's not in the
Well,
code.
this is, right here, you're talking about the corner lot. And I think the thing is that we're looking, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but we're looking at the requirements of a piece of property that the applicant is living on. So if they fall under a different set of requirements, then
If she moves that fence, whatever, 1, 2, 3 feet away from the property line, I could see it's a structure within that. But on the same fence line, on the same property line, there cannot be two fences, each by their own rule.
well,
It is not clear in the
No,
code.
sir, I completely agree. I
Right.
totally agree. And Peter, I'm sure he agrees, and probably everybody in this room, we agree.
I even agree.
But it,
But you're held to what.
So why does her property right prevail over my property?
well, it doesn't.
it's not
It
that
doesn't.
prevail.
It doesn't prevail.
It doesn't prevail.
Standard.
Because my 4 feet fence, my 24 feet fence with 50% opening, it's mute now. It has no purpose anymore. See, there's a secret.
I believe there's a citation in the code about, the section of the code that discusses corner lot fences that attach to buildings and how those are allowed to be.
I did not see the line in there.
Right, I think there is an exception for.
I did not see the line in there. I took the time to
You
read
didn't
the
see
whole
that?
code.
Right.
I can read very well. I can listen.
No, I'm not saying that.
I did not see the line.
Right.
If you want to see where the line is, I will follow.
So is
I don't know
is the fence proposed to occupy the same space as this fence? Would it be, is the suggestion that it would replace? Or
No, no, no.
Like an adjacent?
No, the fence setbacks are, the fence has to be within the property lines.
Right.
It can go up to, but it cannot go
Including
over.
the foundation work and everything.
The poles, everything
Right.
has to be on their side of the property. No part of any fence can go into anybody else's
Right. So
property.
they may not even occupy the same line, because it may, as absurd as that sounds, you may have a fence constructed here, and then.
Right
2 feet
next to
away
it.
or a foot away, you may have a fence constructed here. It occurs.
That's not
I'm not saying it's a
on,
good idea, but it doesn't, because different people have different desires, and they want to do something different with their property, so.
So do you agree with the letter is written, that this particular proposal would destroy the historical character
Here
of
we
the Sheldon Close landmark district? And it will negatively impact the entire property value of all the houses there, including ours, and that it will materially impact our own enjoyment of our own property. Would you agree with that statement that we're laying?
Well, we can discuss that. I mean, I can't out of hand agree or disagree with that. We would have to discuss it, but now that we know that it's technically permissible, I think we should talk about
And I have again to disagree, it is not technically permitted.
I have a
It is
question.
not written
Please
in any
stop.
line of
No,
the
don't
code
talk.
that says any of those
Peter.
statements are permitted.
it. Okay, but the thing is that,
Here.
I know, I'm
the
sorry.
thing is that in the reading of the code, it does permit. So because of the requirements of, because this code is in reference to 2 different kinds of lots. The corner lot has a set of rules, and the mid lot, or whatever it's called, lot has a different set of rules. So when they come together, this is the area that we're discussing, but because the other property owner has those rules, they can play by those rules. So if it is permissible by the code and the building official is saying it is, then it is. That part isn't up for debate. The other part is its impact and all the stuff that you just mentioned. We can discuss that for sure.
Can I see the section of the code that explicitly allows our neighbor to erect that fence? Because we did not see that in the code. We went through the code, but we did not see that.
Okay.
I don't have
I've got it, I've got a copy here.
Because that section on the section is not too long. You can
there's
read it, and I read the whole thing in a few hours. The section on the section is only a 5-minute read.
Right.
And it's pretty layman English, it's not a legally laden paragraph, so everybody could read it. I did not see anything specific about it.
Do we have the code here?
Yeah, I'm underlining the section.
Okay. I will say as an aside, we really shouldn't be instructing things about that was something that we could never do. So the fact that this did get this far without being in front of the board is problematic. We should,
Is the reason
that should have been discussed. I don't know what remedies there are for that.
This allows the applicant to build a 6-foot fence or a 5-foot in one section.
This is what applies to each house, but with the rear side yard. That's what we'll display for rear.
I've seen that.
Okay, so
It applies to everything else except the property lines for the corner lot. Everybody else can have that 75%, and as tall as the smallest, like the smallest setback.
up to another 6 feet.
Up to it, but not for the two lines at the back of a quarter lot. It specifically says line 3, if I remember, B. It specifically says for a quarter lot on the two faces. It cannot be taller than 4 feet. It has to be at least 50%.
Was that in the section of the corner lot, or was that in the section
If
of
we
the lot?
accept this language, it says that cannot be taller than 6.
Excuse me, could you tell me what section number you're reading?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Can you tell me what section number you're reading, please?
Or I can read it.
So this is the one,
I just don't want to write about it. It was fully charged when I brought it.
So this is from Mariemont zoning code in section 151.103, fence or wall inside or rear yard. Paragraph A, it shall be unlawful to construct or erect a fence or wall more than 4 feet in height, except that in residence A, B, and C districts. These structures may be constructed or erected to a height not to exceed 6 feet at any point along the lot lines, boundary side, or rear yard, provided the height of that structure shall not exceed 75% of the width of any adjoining side yard or 75% of the depth of any adjoining rear yard. Well, yeah.
So 75% of 6 feet that separate the proposed fence. My house is 4.5 feet. According to that, the proposed fence cannot be taller than 4.5.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But only through that section, because it's only through that section where the house just out a bit apparently, and your remaining lot drops to the 6 feet. Over here, you have a little bit more than 6 feet, and over here, you have a little bit more than 6 feet.
So is this the side of my house that runs along the kitchen and all the windows?
Yes, this is where you have the play area, I believe, back here, and this is where her garage is located right here. And this is the driveway, her driveway going out here. So like I said, only through that section right there, because of how the house, juts into the yard ever so slightly, and the remaining yard is down to 6 feet. That's how you, 75% of that is 4 feet. So for that section right there, we have to drop to 4. This section is 6, and this section could be 6 out to the front facade of her house. Yeah.
But read letter B. What does letter B say?
Paragraph B says a fence or wall not exceeding 6 feet in height may be erected parallel to and along the lot line bounded by a lane or alley in the rear yard with the side lot lines of the rear yard join the side lot lines of the rear yard of adjacent property. That is, the fence or wall need not be 50% open construction.
But that's specific to a rear alley and a roadway.
So let me ask you one more question.
Yes.
According to the code 151-102, where does it say, the one that I cited in my letter, where does it say that it applies to corner houses?
Well,
Any lot-
it says right in the beginning, I think.
Yeah, this is a fence or wall on corner lot. It's section 151.102 is fence or wall on corner lot. So this section deals with corner lots. And then this, sorry. So then this one, paragraph B, or that you cited, says along any rear lot line of a corner lot bounded by a front yard as specified in section 151.085 a fence or wall shall be no more than 4 feet in height, and at least 50%.
So this section applies to me only?
It applies to corner lots,
To all corner lots.
any corner lot, not just one. I'm on a corner lot too. I've tried to do it myself. We're about to do a renovation. But I want to do a
But
parallel path.
the first letter there says along. It doesn't say on the line, 10 feet from the line, 70 feet from the line this way. It says along.
Where?
The first letter of that paragraph says along.
I'm sorry.
102.
Yeah, 102B. Right, that's a corner lot. That talks about corner lot. So each of the close is not a corner lot.
Right, so it says along, the first word,
Yeah.
along any rear lot line. It doesn't say on the lot line or step back from the lot line. Along that lot line, you cannot have.
If you're a corner lot.
Right.
I got you.
Right.
So let's just do this. So this is your property. Let's just, for example, so this piece of paper is your property, this piece of paper is my property. Let's say we're neighbors. If you construct a fence on your property, it is not on your property. It's along the property line, but it doesn't actually go on my property at any point, because if it does, it's a violation. So if you follow the rules on your property and follow the rules on my property, we have not violated the code. As frustrating as that may or may not be, we haven't violated the code, then we haven't violated the code. I know that's not redundant, but if it's an issue of legality and it technically does comply, then it's not an issue of legality to be discussed. It will be an issue that the other stuff that you were talking about is fully fine. We can talk about it. I do want to bring to a close the issue of compliance or not. And just, I have a couple more questions. I'm sorry for delaying so much, but we're talking about the depth or width of the yard. Is the depth and width, is that defined by the distance from the property line to the built object, or is that defined by the setback?
It is the built object.
Okay, so if you had a.
Let me see it very specifically. I don't want to misspeak.
But this is what I'm asking.
Yes.
So let's say we had a 25-foot side yard setback.
All right.
And that's a lot. We have a 10-foot side yard setback, let's say that. But the building was 15 feet away. Would then the width be 15 or would it be 10? For the sake of this discussion.
I'm sorry, I was not listening. I was
No,
reading.
you're fine. So let's say we had, let's say the side yard setback was 10 feet.
Mhm.
And the building started at 15 feet from the property line. Is the width as defined in your interpretation 15 or 10?
15, because
you're
it's,
measuring the building itself.
You're measuring to
Correct.
the building.
I just want to clarify
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, to the
That's where we're
structure,
operating.
so this is the actual remaining yard size.
I just
correct.
want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. That's all.
Yes.
We are. I think
Okay,
we
so
are.
in
This-
this instance, we have how many feet from the property line to the building?
Somewhere between 5 and 6, somewhere around 6 feet.
Okay, so if we have 6 feet, then that's why that 75% rule keeps it below the 6-foot requirement.
That, I'm not sure about 75%. I'd have to double check that, but the height is allowed to be 4 foot where it's 6 foot away from their house.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
the
I think
75% of
that
the
I
height,
would-
I mean, that is a correct calculation.
Yes.
Okay,
I
sorry,
would-
somebody had a question.
The,
online.
the applicant would like to say something. If he's still with us.
Yep.
James? Okay, sorry it took so long for me to get to you. Go ahead.
That's okay. So I guess there have been just so many people talking, I can't even make sense of what's been, from what I'm hearing is we are code compliant because we are not a corner lot. The code is specifically talking about a corner lot having a 4-foot fence with certain opacity, and that is for the corner lot only. Now, if that is the case, what I'm hearing is that our proposed fence is legal to be 6 feet to a certain point where the neighbor's house bumps out. And then at that point, it would need to drop down.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Have they submitted a building permit?
Yes, but we will not do that until
I
this
just wanna clarify.
discussion.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I have a permit application.
Permit application, okay. And the
Yes.
documents in the permit application have been satisfactory up to this point. We're just discussing today, and then it'll go forward with review.
Yes, because they're going to change it to 4 feet. So their fence will be legal. The only thing that the building department will approve is the 6 foot up to the house bump out and then 4 foot from there.
And I think that's a decent compromise.
So in that fence, what is the allowable level of opacity for that fence? Is there allowed to be a privacy fence?
That I will ask, hang on. Hey, Don, did you hear the question? When the fence has to reduce to 4 feet because it's so close to the next door house, is it allowed to be a solid privacy fence, or does it take on the 50% open rule?
No, it's still allowed to be a privacy fence.
So
Okay.
it's just the height we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay.
Could I please see the code stipulating to
There's no restrictions. It's allowed, the only restrictions are the height. It's, the code says a privacy fence is allowed, and then it talks about the height in different sections. There's no restriction on opacity. I'm sorry.
Except of course, those corners.
Well,
Again, I know, back to the
no, we're
confusion. I shouldn't even bring that up.
No, that's confusing. We're just talking about the interior shelter closed application.
So, okay, do we want to discuss what else do we want to discuss on this topic as far as the fence itself?
Well, in terms of the legality, I believe we've got that hammered here, but I believe to some of the points that you're making, the aesthetic considerations or the aesthetic sensibilities here of putting that kind of a fence there, I think we could discuss that.
Yeah, we should, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Eileen, may I interject?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So from a cosmetic standpoint, in the neighborhood in Sheldon Close, there are already 2 wooden fences, one directly across the street. And there is also a fence that was just constructed within the last few weeks by Pioneer Fence, same wooden structure. I don't think that there's any point in discussing, especially because the fence is not going to be coming out, protruding into the into a very visible area. The corner lot house on Crystal Springs is going to be screening off any visibility there. It's going to be a pretty decorative fence when we're all said and done. So just from a cosmetic standpoint, if that's going to be the next thing that you guys discuss, it's already been done in Sheldon Close. I think it looks nice as long as it's decorative and tastefully done.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I walked today and saw the other people, well, I guess 3 fences there. Is the one further back by 5? Is that the one that was just done? That's one that looks the newest to me.
Yes, the one at 5 was done.
Okay, that's Pioneer that just did that?
I didn't know that, but yeah, okay. Yes,
The one directly across the street on 1 or 2, I don't know which number it is. That's a much older, it's a silvered out and it sort of has a scalloping. Okay.
and
Is
they,
that the one at Bob Rich's house?
no, that's the,
The adjacent house?
Oh,
That's-
okay.
okay.
Well, you brought it across, right? Across the street
Yeah,
there.
across the.
Yeah, and I think it's the
Sheldon.
one on the side, is it 1 or maybe this is on 2, whatever. It's
The-
over
it's Casey Burke, the new residents, and they will be fixing that fence up. It's falling down a little bit,
there. Okay.
and they will be coming in front of us to discuss character, look,
Okay.
feel.
So I think now we should talk about the aesthetics. I know Jamie has if there's a submission in there for what it looks like, have you seen what it looks like? Besides this.
It's in your packet?
Not this, oh, this, yeah. sorry.
No.
Eileen, there's also a consideration that Lynn was making after seeing the fence that was installed at 5 Sheldon Close. It can also be, it can represent that same fence as well. It can be that same installation.
Okay, thank you.
Either options is okay with her, is what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks.
What is what's the material?
Oh. Hang on a second.
We use that, Jamie. You want to
I
say
know,
it,
I
Jamie?
think, do you have a good picture of
I
it?
mean, I'm black.
Yeah,
I
well,
saw
I mean,
it.
there's kind of a color
Yeah.
shot of it.
But is it cedar or what is it?
I don't-
The material right now is pressure treated pine. We can stain it a cedar tone. But if you guys get into fencing projects or deck projects, it's a cheaper material to use. But you can stain it so that it looks like cedar, same structural value.
And what are the post caps made of?
I'm sorry,
The caps on the post?
caps will be wooden caps.
And how is this just, are you pouring footings and dropping them in, or are you just pounding the posts into the ground?
Correct. We'll put pressure treated posts down into the ground at the frost line, standard fence insulation for the posts.
How close to the property line are you intending to go?
We'll come as close as code requires or allows us to. We'd like to get as close to the property line. Obviously, the pylons will be underground, and the outside edge of that concrete pylon, it sounds like, can't be over the property line. So we'll take that into consideration.
Oh, there's concrete?
Yeah, the concrete, it's a 12-inch hole, but the post is only between 4 and 6 inches. So sounds like even the underground structure of the fence can't be over the property line. So we will recess it back so that even if for some reason there was work being done, even our concrete won't be over the property line, even though it's subgrade.
Right, okay. So.
Well, I gotta say, just make a comment here. I mean, if you look at some of the historical pictures, some of the historical references
Right.
to what was, I think, originally intended by some of the original. Just if you look at some of the historical pictures to sort of get an idea for what the original architect might have had in mind. I mean, it's very, very low slung, it looks like fencing, well, very low kind of a thing. From an aesthetic, I certainly prefer that. I really like that. I mean, I have to say, I am a little concerned about erecting a fence of this size up to the backside of their house, and it's going to go up to the backside of their fence. I do think that's worth considering.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, I mean, overall, this might be, the code as it exists, might make sense on Miami Bluff, say. But Sheldon Close is a historic grouping.
Right.
It was meant to look cohesive. And we've talked a lot of times in this board about, people have gotten away with things in the past. I'm new, I've been here a year, and I've been about less you guys, but we've talked about how important it is that, sorry that happened and those other people were allowed to do that, but we've got to maintain the integrity of our historic district and beauty.
I think that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, looking at some of these pictures and things, this seems to run counter to the original intention of the architect who originally designed this. It just seems like a fence of that size, put where they want to put it, is out of place. And I don't care if it is behind their house.
Right.
Somebody's saying, well, you're not really going to see it back there. Well, you are, in a way. I mean, if you drive around Sheldon Close, you're going to see it.
Well, we on the street wouldn't see it.
Well, they're going to see it, but anybody.
Look at it all day.
Yeah, but anybody who drives around it.
Right. I mean, I try to drive up and down all the streets, and drive the slow, so I try to peek through and see if I ever caught a view of it. And I didn't see to me, let's just set this up. Let's say we painted this thing bright magenta. I don't know if you would see it very often from the street. However, if you were in the yards, which is where we spend a great deal of time, especially in summer, it'll be there all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's aesthetic consideration is valuable. I mean, it's valuable for us to talk about that. So
I'm wondering, we're sort of agonizing on this a little bit. I mean, I thought there was a proposal on the table where you would consider possibly doing it in shrubbery of some kind.
That's not her, she's a neighbor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's,
I'm sorry.
yeah, Jamie.
Jamie's on
Oh.
the, we've been,
Oh.
Jamie's.
All right, Jamie, I mean, is that still an option that's out there?
Hang on one sec, I need to unmute him.
It's only an option if we are not able to put the fence in because of code requirements. And I understand respecting the value of Sheldon Close. I lived in Mariemont for 25 years. I understand the quaintness of Sheldon Close. I just don't believe that what we're constructing is going to decrease the value of this little nook of Mariemont. It's these fences are being constructed. They've already been constructed. I just don't think that if it's tastefully done, there will be any detriment to property value. I don't think that visiting people walking on the sidewalk with their dogs are going to comment how hideous this fence is, and they wouldn't buy a property or, consider moving to Mariemont for this reason. So I think that if the code is, I'll let that be it. But that's my 2 cents on it being a cosmetic detriment to the neighborhood. I don't believe that that's the case.
I've got a question for Jamie. Hey, Jamie, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Jamie, is the fence, is there a plan for the fence to be stained or painted if in fact it's erected?
Yeah, it can be. It's currently pressure treated pine, so it needs to bake in the sun, if you will, to get all of the just to get it prepared for it to be stained. So I would say within this summer it can be stained.
Okay. Personally, I've got the same situation. I live on the corner lot in the historic district, and my neighbor, we have a 6-foot fence. Here's a picture of it. And I see it every morning. I see it every day. Yeah, you can pass it around. And I understand where they're coming from. I do. They have their fence up, big 6-foot fence.
Yeah.
Appears it's big, but we bought the house. We got already in place, and we knew it was there. And it was okay, and it worked out. It's been fine. Our neighbors bring it. It's all good. I'm only bringing that up because I know exactly what you're feeling, because I experience it every day. But for us personally, it works for us. I'm not saying, what it should for you, but it works for us because it is a privacy fence, because our patio butts up to it, and so does Louise's.
Yeah. I
My
know.
neighbor, and it butts up to it.
Yeah, I know the
And
house.
it runs, it's 45 feet. So that's just my 2 cents.
So I would never buy our house if there were a 6-foot wall behind it.
Right in
What
front
we
of my
have
window.
there is hideous.
It's
It
crazy.
has nothing to do with art. It has nothing to do with architecture. It has nothing to do with the historical character of Sheldon Close. I mean, it's Atterbury houses we're talking about, and they're putting the fence in there.
In fact, I think we can prove with that.
How can you live with it?
I understand and can appreciate your 92 years.
Generations lived with a 4-foot tall bush. Generations of owner maintained it at a 4-foot height.
That is the respect for architectural gem. It is the respect for the historic character of what our village is for. I mean, turn it into Mesa.
Yeah.
We paid $635,000 for this house 10 years ago. 12 years ago. I could go to Mason and buy myself a mansion for $150,000. I don't want it. I want to live in a piece of art. I want to be the guardian of that piece of art so I can pass it on to the next generations. of people who are gonna walk, shut them close and say, oh my God, this is a reprieve from everything. I am transformed and put into a completely different place. I'm in a different time. I see people walking around Sheldon Close when there is a little tree, magnolia in the corner of my lot. I see people walk around and they look, see my house and they stop. My office is on the second floor. I work there every day from home. I see people passing and stopping to look at my house. They do the same thing with Bob Rich's house. They do the same thing for every single Sheldon Close house.
So I totally respect, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I appreciate your passion. That's what we bought in the historic district, and we lived over on Emory Lane for 20 some odd years, and we moved 5 years ago over to the historic district because we wanted to stay in Mariemont because we love that historic district. And I totally understand where you're coming from.
We are the guardians of history.
We can't just destroy it willy-nilly because somebody all of a sudden, it's a person brand new in the village. Whenever you move into a new village, I moved 7 times in my life, you have a feeling that the whole village is watching, right? Anybody's done 7, 5 moves together, you're moving into a new community, the whole village is watching, right? And maybe they do if you're in this in your town. It's what it is. It's part of moving with your job. But just because that 1 year of transition into your new community is tough, doesn't give you license to just build 6-foot tall stockades like your frontier town. I know Lynn. I talked to Lynn. When Lynn moved into that house, I welcomed her with open heart. We had drinks on my back porch. It's not like we had a conflictual relationship. We didn't walk in each other's houses because of the pandemic, right? But I had a really good relationship with Lynn, when all of a sudden, she tells me, by the way, I'm building a 6-foot tall stockade here. I need my privacy. Where did that come from? I thought we talk each other, we salute each other, we share conversations over the fence like we have seen in the best of the sitcoms. Where does this come from? The idea that all of a sudden we need fence. Is any of my kids peeping through the window into your window? They're not, they're high school kids. They leave at 7:30 and they come back at 7:30. Right? It's not an issue of privacy. It's an issue of giving this community a chance to accommodate. Yes, the first year is rough moving into a. Lynn has lived 30 years in the previous house on a farm with 30 or 50 acres, I forgot the exact number. She did not see a person if she didn't call that person for an appointment. Now Lynn walks into her backyard and sees me there with my friend drinking a beer and smoking a cigar. Oh, that's a big invasion of my privacy. But it's part of living in a community, in Mariemont community. It's part of its charm. You walk outside, you say hello to your neighbor. If Lynn is bothered by me saying hello to her, if I see her in her backyard, I promise you, I will never say hello to her. I will never look at her.
I don't think you can make it.
Hey, Mike, are you there?
Hang on.
And about that wall, it's not that it's just 6 foot.
Yeah, he's there
or
now.
5 foot away
Hang on
from
one
the
second,
property
Mike.
line. We don't know where the property line needs to be. Right? Somebody needs to figure out where is that property.
Like, yes.
Whoa,
Survey.
Has it been surveyed?
No.
Was there a survey submitted along with the?
No, and that's not required for the permit. It's just required that they put it on their property entirely, and if there's any issue, then it's on them to get the,
I'm not trying to throw monkey wrenches in anybody's life, but if you want to insist that it's validated, somebody would have to prove where it goes, and that would be only able to be done with a property survey. So someone would have to survey and stake it. That's not a big deal. They can find little monuments they're in the ground, they'll drop a couple new ones in, and that would establish exactly where that lot is. So
I think you can just get a line survey too, don't have to do the whole property.
yeah, it's not a huge amount of money, but
Mike, did you just hear that prior discussion?
As I said, it's extremely difficult to hear. remotely?
Well, they were making an impassioned plea about, maintaining historic architecture and the relevance that plays in a village like Mariemont. I mean, I think they made a very strong case for that, and I was hoping to sort of get your take on it if you've heard it.
Well, I did hear that, and I totally agree with that.
Okay.
And I guess the real travesty here is, in my opinion, is that we don't have stricter laws about fencing in our historic district.
Correct.
Yeah.
It seems to me.
Well, it's stricter laws, but it's almost ridiculous that we've got a situation where you have abutting properties at 90 degrees like this. One is a corner lot, one is not. There's a different set of standards for the corner than there is for the abutting property. And you've got that, you've got this situation.
Especially when it's a historical.
Especially when it falls in the historic district.
And it's a grouping. It's not just two houses next to each other in the street. They were built to look in a certain
exactly
way.
right. I would be the first to say that this aspect of the code needs to be examined and looked at. Yes. I don't know how this helps. The problem is here, this is the conundrum that I got myself into once before. Within the letter of the law, they're allowed to do what they can do. But I'm against it. I'm against this. I'm just stating it right here.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether, legally, we can't stop it.
If we talk about the idea of bushes and the homeowner would be, if you can't do the fence, would you be opposed to arborvitae or, the garden kind of tall thing?
There were the original bushes that were planted by the park were lined. They were lined right there. 92 years, people maintained those at 4 feet height, at the same line with the dog fence that the previous owners put. If that is reinstated, it would be exactly what the.
What about higher though? What I'm talking about, arborvitae are tall and thin.
Yeah, I think it would need to be maintained per the intention of the architect at 4 feet high. Because then you find some kind of vegetation that drawn this tall and the density of the fence. And yeah, it's not, pressure treated wood, but it's achieved the same effect.
Yeah, well, at least it's a natural plant.
I would say it's a lot more aesthetic.
The applicant would like to say something.
All right, Jamie, I'm unmuting you.
Yep, thank you. I can hear the passion in the neighbor's voice, and I appreciate that. I think that homeowners like that are why Mariemont is the way that it is. So I can seriously appreciate the fight that we're having over this to preserve this area. If we're going to go back to having a neighborly conversation, I understand. And yes, we would all love to live in the 50s sitcoms where we, say hi to our neighbors and that's what I do with my neighbors, but everyone's not the same. And privacy is privacy. It's we live in a super open, always connected world, and having a backyard to yourself, I think is very important in the time that we live in. Not to say that I think people should be friendly and communicative. I think that if we go back to the arborvitae, that just kicks the can down the road. You're still creating privacy. It's more cost to my customer, which she has expressed disinterest in taking on that added cost of the plant material. And so that's really all I've got to say about that. And I think that if these comments are going to be, these are very subjective comments coming. And I think that if we're going to take those into consideration, there needs to be a larger sample size of who thinks, and, I don't know how many people are in the room right now, but it can't just be, there would have to be a survey done of everyone in Mariemont who thinks this is a travesty or not. So I just think the sample size is too small to make a decision on it. Either way, I'm not saying let's push it forward because the code says we can, but I'm also not willing to entertain that just, an impassioned argument is subjective. So sorry if that offends anyone.
No, but let me remind you that the Architectural Review Board is here to make, these types of determinations. And even though it may be a small sample size, I mean, that's all of government is a small sample size for that fact, for that reason. So,
Yep. I can agree with that.
Man,
Yeah,
this Sunday.
well,
Hang on one second, Mike.
10 years ago. That survey became Mariemont Vision 2021. That survey looked at all the residents and all the resident groups, from Mary Elders to Scouts, to the Mariemont Preservation Foundation, and all the way to the vendors that come here. And what transpired from that? What are the most critical things that the survey of citizens of Mariemont has to say? It is the beauty, preservation, and historical character. And that survey actually said explicitly, and I will quote, stipulates historic preservation, visual appeal, beauty, and uniqueness of Mariemont. Stipulates, and I quote, the village needs to be real vigilant about code enforcement in the historic district. Quote, architecture, planning, and zoning are key elements in maintaining community integrity. Protecting the village character is instrumental to maintaining Mariemont's status as a historical community, a desirable place to live, and a destination for visitors. This is what we are. And that was the survey that was done as the vision for Mariemont in the year that we recount. 10 years have passed. And in these 10 years, we did preserve the beauty of Mariemont. And all it takes is one variance at a time to destroy that historical character. And that means that 10 years from now, one variance at a time, two variances at a time, we're not recognized for who we are. Who is going to pay $900,000, $600,000 to live in a community that is Anderson or Mason? I don't know.
Ma'am, I can tell you, you're quoting from my playbook. I have essentially given that very talk in this room. How many times have you heard me say it? That's why I'm.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why we love you, Bill.
Thanks, Mike.
I think if the point is to determine whether it's appropriate or not, and if that, because I don't think it's appropriate, I can just say that right now, but I think that what is appropriate is something that is lower. I think from an architectural perspective, and I'm not trying to upset Jamie, I'm saying from an architectural perspective, I wouldn't want, and this is very subjective, but I am an architect, I wouldn't want to have the building be obscured or block the sight lines or whatever terminology you want to use with something that is a 6-foot line. I think that is too high. That's my own personal opinion there. So I don't find it appropriate. But what I'm struggling with is, though, if the zoning and building code doesn't disallow it, I don't know what authority we're granted. And I mean, I love your passion for art and architecture. But I don't know if just because they're persuasive and motivated that they should be favored, right? I don't think that's fair. However, I don't think it's appropriate. So I'm sort of stuck here.
Well, I know.
I want to hear alternatives.
This is the conundrum that I got into with a certain other house.
Don't 6.4 go back up to 6?
No, he's saying he wouldn't want that,
You
but
wouldn't want that, but I
but
think that's
if-
what they would have
We're
to
just talking
do.
about the letter of it. So like there are cities all over the world where you can look at skyscrapers, you can see where the air right setback was because they step it.
Yeah.
And it's hideous.
Yeah.
Some architects make it part of the composition that becomes beautiful, but you can just look up sometimes and go, I believe this extrusion of what's allowed. So if we just take what is allowed when we do this step, whether that's good or bad, that is within the allowable, it's allowable within the requirements, right?
So
So
why would anybody want to do that?
he said he didn't.
everybody says, but if that's what they're allowed to do, and they wanted to max out, then that would be, quote, legal, unquote, right? Because they would be within compliance. So I think that if And that's why I wanted to make sure that we had discussed that initially, because we want to set up the argument. I'm not saying it's inappropriate, or I don't think it's appropriate just because you're passionate. I very much welcome it. You're certainly very thoroughly prepared, but I think it's inappropriate because of the proximity of the property. Just walking it today, it's really tight there. However, I also don't have a good answer, and he's got an excellent argument that if we can't say it's not compliant, then he can just, I don't know.
Well, it's right. It's because we can turn it down. We can vote right here tonight and turn it down. And then, of course, I think the next step is they bring it into council on an appeal, and they would prevail, because the current council, the way that it is, they would interpret the letter of the law precisely, and they would prevail. That's what it would be. Although, as mayor, I am certainly going to bring this issue before the Rules of Law Committee. So basically, this particular aspect of the code should be addressed, as Marcy was saying, specifically as it applies within the historic district.
Well, specifically within our historic district, and the buildings that are composed, the multiple buildings are composed as one. They are built as a single.
Groupings.
Yes, exactly.
Especially important that those have special rules. So, and I don't mind symbolic gestures, so if it's okay to say we don't want to do it, and then it gets kicked to council and they approve it anyway, I don't mind I don't mind delaying 2 weeks.
Well, I'm just outlining that would be their option. I mean, that would be that's the procedure.
Right, and I'm not trying to create hardship for Jamie.
He wants to talk.
Yeah, sure. And I know that materials have already been acquired, although I will say, and no offense, Jamie, but we really shouldn't have started construction without a permit. That's a bad thing to do. It's dangerous. It causes all sorts of issues. And we really got to follow through.
Here we go.
So is that something that our code we could find?
Yes,
Okay.
Jamie wants to talk. Go ahead, Jamie.
Sorry.
Thank you. Just a simple question. What conversation was had from the ARB about the fence that was constructed at 5 Sheldon Close? I'm just curious.
Don, you're going to have to address that one.
Fence on Sheldon Close was a replacement. And the discussion that was had was discussed within the village and within the building department and with the mayor, and we decided to allow that fence because it was a replacement. It was intended to go before the ARB, but it did not go before the ARB. And frankly, it was a mistake, but it was not put before the ARB because it was a replacement.
Yeah, I hadn't
Thank
seen
you.
it. I saw it today when I walked over there, but it looked good, but I hadn't seen, I don't recall a presentation.
Well, that's fair. I think that we're showing 2 cases in Sheldon Close where this concept has been approved. And Bill, I can stand right next to you and say, hey, let's preserve the historic district as best we can. And also with this this neighbor, I think that the major changes in a community happen one little step at a time, and leniency on little things here, one little step at a time, and then all of a sudden you look around and you don't even recognize the place. So I just don't think we are anywhere in the realm of changing the again, coziness of Sheldon Close. I just don't see the argument.
Okay, listen, you're not going to win that one, and we're just not going to agree on that. I wonder if I might ask that to prevail upon you to possibly go back to the applicant and resuggest the idea of bushes, even if they would, if you would agree to the bushes being 6 feet in height. If they were.
I mean, that's fine. I can't get a bush that doesn't grow. So, it's going to be a constant battle, and there's going to be maintenance and additional costs. Honestly, the budget was approved for this. It was within code compliance, and it's frustrating for me to have to go back and resell this issue to my customer. It's tough. She doesn't want to do it. We're within code, and within the historical guidelines. And I think this is going to be a tasteful fence. It's been done. I'm just not looking forward to that conversation if it doesn't have to be had. And I'm willing to comply. I'm super compliant with neighboring issues. We always take everything into consideration, but this is a very specific privacy request. So I'll talk to her about it. I mean, I'll say that I'll talk to her about it if she doesn't want to go down that road. I mean, we'll just have that conversation. I can't imagine us having to go through another ARB meeting to get that settled. So, I mean, I don't know what the steps are to be very, it sounds like we're compliant. I want to be very respectful of everyone in the situation, but it sounds like we're code compliant. And we'd like to push forward. So at least for that section of fence,
Yeah,
up to
James,
the dugout, but yeah.
if you would agree to the bushes, I don't believe we need another ARB meeting.
No, I understand. I don't know if that's going to be an option she wants to go with. So
That's all I'm really asking, to try and go back to her, one more time and, sound her out on the idea, I suppose.
yep, I can definitely do that. Yeah, I don't know who I contact after that point to say, hey, we're moving forward or not, but I guess that would just be Dawn.
Go to the building department. And
Yeah.
If the building department feels it needs to take before the ARB, then it's submitted the ARB. So.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion that we seem to have come down to the fact that the code allows it, the neighbors don't want it. And I think it is pretty offensive, frankly, personal opinion, subjective, to the architectural heritage of the village. So my suggestion is that the ARB vote no on this application and recognize the fact that the code, or recommend that the code be examined and perhaps changed. Can that be a motion?
Yes, that can be.
That can be
Yeah,
a motion.
yes.
That can be a motion.
Second.
Yeah. Second, all right.
Is that motion clear enough?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure that.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Roll call. Aye,
Mayor,
aye.
Dr.
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Aye.
thank you.
I would like to follow up that. I think that I really do think this needs to be pushed before, who is it who makes the determination to get it into the zoning code? How does that happen?
Well, I make a recommendation to put it into the Rules and Law Committee to be,
Right.
to be looked at and studied. They will look at it and review it, and they will come with a recommendation. That recommendation comes before council,
Right.
where it would be, voted on, either approved or not approved. And then whatever alteration there would be to the code, I mean, the solicitor would write that.
And they would-
Then they get issued, what, yearly or how?
No. Once it goes, I mean, once the code is altered, there's, well, you know how it works. I mean, there's 3 readings, you have 3 readings, you pass it, then you have to wait 30 days for it to, become effective.
Right.
But once it's in the code, it's in the code. That's the code.
Okay.
But they should be working with us, Don and I, to make sure
Well,
that
that's the reason for holding the committee
Yes.
And
meeting.
also MTF, I would look to MTF for
I was gonna say
recommendations.
that.
Yes.
I would want them to come in because they're.
And you-
Specifically on the buildings that are constructed as groups.
Yes.
And if I can say even more specifically, any buildings that are in the historic district that are as true to the original as they can be, specifically those should have, I think, special rules, like, so that we need to
Totally.
set this up, because we don't want to have another property that go through this, or another citizen, or whatever you want to call them. If they go all the way down the road, they get everything's fine, and they run into a wall. But they,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
that's what happens, and so.
And technically, should the 5 to 7 posts have come before the ARB even for a replacement fence?
yes.
So that's, that's,
I think we also need to, beat anybody up here, but any construction anything in the historic district needs to come before the ARB, just so we can have, as, you know, uncomfortable or comfortable conversations we have to, we should talk about it. So,
And even a
Jamie
replacement
wants to
fence?
talk again.
Yeah, even a replacement fence, because as I have
Well-
said, I don't want to keep compounding mistakes.
well, and that's why I wanted to say any construction whatsoever should come before the ARB, so that we can avoid situations like this. And that's what Jamie wants to say.
Before we finish that, Dawn and I have a recommendation and we're regarding the code and ARB. And that is to avoid just this onslaught of everybody coming all the time, that if the work being done is exactly to code, is, you know, a historic code, colors, construction, then we don't have to come here because they're not asking for any kind of exception. That was the recommendation that we have. Anyway, so Jamie would like to talk. All right, Jamie, go. Oh, sorry, you're still.
Can you hear me okay?
Now I can, go ahead.
I just had a couple clarifying questions as I prepare to have this conversation with Lynn. So the facts as of right now are that the rear fence can be constructed 6 feet.
You need a decision on, yeah, I mean,
Guess we can make a decision on
Yeah.
the rear fence.
yeah, by code, yes, you can. The group here needs to decide whether you're gonna approve the construction and the color.
We're going to plan.
But the neighbor behind the Peters doesn't want that. Right?
It's, sorry, but it's irrelevant. I mean, you can talk about how they don't want it, but legally it's allowed and the,
Okay.
yeah, sorry, yeah, the correct, I'm sorry, yeah. They do not, or, yeah, they don't.
So the rear yard though is separating, that's something that's not, is that separating shelter close
Crystal Springs,
from lack of a better word, non-shelter close building? Like
yes,
that unit, the Atterbury, whatever it's called?
yes,
Yeah, and I think the argument sort of starts to fall apart at that point, that if we're separating blocks, then.
Yeah, because it's a different.
Although I really think that the zoning code should be very specific and very clear on all edges of the property, so that this confusion can be avoided. Yeah.
agreed.
I
Do
mean,
you
I
need a
don't,
motion for that?
probably, yeah, and I'm not objecting to that rear fence, so we need a motion now. I move that the section of fence, the rear fence along, I guess, from the garage to.
What angle was it? Do we need to discuss
The
colors?
southeast corner.
Southeast
Do we
corner.
need to discuss colors or anything on materiality or anything like that? On this one?
We could, but I think the way he's already described it, it's in pressure treated. Did you say pine, Jamie?
Yeah, yep.
Pressure
Yeah,
treated
the-
pine. You don't know whether it's going to be stained or not stained?
The,
The
Yeah, if you guys are familiar, we can either leave it weathered, which tends to gray out, which is kind of a good look. It's a nice weathered look, or we can do a stain. That's up to Lynn though.
the, no, the
Yeah, they're gonna
require,
be green for a while.
the code requires all fences in the historic district to be brown, white, or black.
Correct.
So-
This will be staying brown, so as long as it's code compliant.
It needs to be stained brown, Jamie. Some
Okay.
shade of brown.
Yep, we can do that.
You know, listen, I mean, we all know, Jamie, I mean, I understand the pressure, it's gonna have to dry out for, you know, a year or something like that before you can, I guess, put the, is it a year or 6 months? Yeah.
It takes a minute.
But just so that you do understand, it will have to be stained.
Yeah, that's clear. I got you.
Okay.
So that is my one point for the back fence. And then in terms of this privacy planting for the neighbors this question is directed at the neighbors. Is there any potential to cover additional costs of the planting material? Is that something that I can speak with Lynn about?
No,
That's a good one.
no, the answer is no.
Okay. I think those are my only two questions. It seems like we've got a really clear direction. I don't have the time to go, appeal after appeal after appeal. And I know Lynn doesn't want to do that. So I will propose that we do some type of privacy planting along the north side And then we will go ahead and move forward with the rear fence.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. I don't think that we actually voted on the, we haven't voted. So the motion was to allow the rear fence from the garage to the, what did you say, Jamie? The southeast corner of the property line across the back of the property.
That's correct.
Correct. All right, that's the motion. Do I have a second? Yours supposed to call for a second.
Do I hear a second?
Mayor Brown,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis. Aye. Mr. Lockhart. Aye. Mr. Kittner.
Mike, you there?
No.
No. He voted no.
And, and we also need to put the stained brown on the ARB.
I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. This was,
Does that conclude our portion of the meeting?
I think we're done with this one. We have
Yeah.
another item of business, but it's not this.
Correct. Jamie, we are,
So Jamie, this one is directly to you. I know you've lived in Mariemont for 20-some years and you now have a business identity. At no point should you ever say that I am opposed because my garden, my flower garden is being shed. There is no flower garden in there. There is no point for that kind of snarky comment, okay? Second point, if this is Lynn, then I need to reconsider my relationship with Lynn. I thought Lynn and I had a good relationship. We talked, we had drinks in our backyard. And I am deeply offended to say that all of a sudden I am not good looking enough for her to see me everyone.
Sorry, I don't have any answers for you there.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. With regards to the vegetation that you propose to put in, you're fully aware that I have 4 kitchen windows facing that, actually 3 kitchen windows facing the regular. And my dining room window, a large bay window, is facing that, right? So
Correct.
A vegetation that is 6 foot tall and dense that you cannot see through is going to achieve the same thing, is going to bypass the rule of the law by, is going to make it unethical. I think that a 6 foot tall vegetation, it is not what we should put in there. I think that vegetation should be 4 feet tall, just like the vegetation that was there for the previous 92 years.
Can I suggest,
Sorry.
this is probably not the place now to have that discussion. I think that's something that, I think that we've achieved a great deal here today in keeping the stockade fence down. The issue of vegetation should be an issue that you work out between you and the neighbor, regardless of whatever that relationship is.
I think I've got, can I interject? I think I've got, I won't put this on. I think I've got your cell phone number. Does it start in 310?
That's the one.
Okay, I think we can have a conversation tomorrow about the details, but yeah, I don't think this is the place to discuss that. I can call you tomorrow or, yeah, I think we can talk about that.
So can we?
Thank you.
This item is closed?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Bye.
Thanks, Jamie. Bye.
Do we have another issue?
Well, if we have an internal issue, then I will stop the webinar. If we're finished here, the webinar will be over. Did you want to say something?
Isn't it fun?
Whoa, aren't you ready?
Okay. Are we done? You want to adjourn? You want to adjourn? Yeah. Meeting adjourned. Goodbye, everyone.